Hello, my name's David Bryan, and this is Curiosity Invited, a podcast inspired by endless curiosity. Tune in for an open-minded conversation about interesting and important things. Hello, and welcome to Curiosity Invited. My name's David Bryan, and in just a moment, you'll be either listening to or viewing and listening to my recent conversation with a good friend, Michael Abels, a musical composer, a music composer, and a musical composer as well. I think he is perhaps most, well, who knows anymore? I mean, his range of success in a variety of genres is enormous. So he did kind of explode onto the scene with Jordan Peele's Academy Award-winning film Get Out, and then for which Michael composed the score, and also did the score for Jordan Peele's next film Us, and then Nope. He's been nominated for 2 Emmys. He's got a stack of awards. I'll put a link to his awards page and you can see for yourself. Most recently, he's won Score of the Year 2023 for ASCAP in the ASCAP Awards, and also the same year, 2023, he and Rhiannon Giddens, the composers, creators of the opera Omar, they won the Pulitzer Prize for their production of Omar. Michael is busy with work and awards, turns out. So when I asked him, it was a long shot for me, when I asked him if he would have time to do yet another podcast with me, he did one perhaps 6 months ago, perhaps a year. I would urge you to listen to that one as well. I was so gratified that he said yes, and time was short. We squeezed it into an hour and a little bit, and I was, as always, delighted to have a conversation with my amazing friend, whose ability both to sort of understand, hear music, understand music, and explain to those of us who are not nearly in that world, but to explain to us how and why and what works for a piece of music. It's just uncanny and always fascinates me. I always have a wonderful time. Probably we both get a little silly, and I hope you like it. And Michael Abels, welcome back to Curiosity Invited. Thank you so much for being generous with your time. The first time around, you were already busy, and I was enormously grateful. The idea that you would be willing to do it again, it's like, so thank you so much. Thank you, really, I appreciate it. And it's really good to see you. It's really
you're very welcome, David. I adore you, and we've always had I find my today, leading up to this, I was thinking back about our history and I have had nothing but wonderful conversations with you always.
That's
and but they've always ended up around some other construct that causes us to speak. And so I've had these great conversations that have ranged about anything. Yes. And there was some other reason that we met that allowed us to have that conversation. So
yes, exactly. I think. And then I went to your page, the IMDb, Michael Abels Awards page, and it just went on and on. And I thought to myself, well, wait, like, does he have to go to all of these things? How does he have time to do anything else?
It's
unbelievable. So do you appear at, or like, is there an expectation that you will show up at the various
Well, it's very interesting, David. The awards economy, and there is an awards economy.
What does that mean?
There is an
Tell.
awards there's maybe there have been articles on this already, but there's actually an awards economy, an economy that exists in the entertainment industry to nominate and award people things.
Like, so we know that movies, the producers of movies and and studios, they spend a lot of money hoping to get their things seen
Yeah,
and
yeah.
applauded and put on, et cetera, et cetera. But does that trickle down to, well, we know the major actors, but does that
It
trickle down to
trickles down.
everybody?
It trickles down to everybody. It's a huge economy, economy of there are. Think of all the caterers who do nothing but cater. Award shows. Think of the my first. I'll never forget my first award show when it ended. And I'd never done this before, and I went downstairs. There was a fleet of I don't know how many, but let's easily 100 black, SUV Suburbans in the belly of this giant, hotel, all
To
there
pick
to
up.
pick up people who had been at the party. They were all there simultaneously, and each one, the only way you could tell them apart was by each one had a number on their windshield, and you had to hope that you had remembered the number of your car, because if you had not, you were sunk.
And suddenly you'd end up in a mansion in Bel Air.
Because every single person in that award banquet came out at the same time to get into their black car.
Into their appropriately numbered black car.
Yes. And because those cars were all paid for by the producers or studios of,
Yes.
and I say all this only just as I was observing what was happening and figuring out, what all that must have meant. Like there's this economy of there's an awards economy, and it's fast.
And does that aspect of it make you jaded? It makes you exhausted. I get that. Is there
Well,
something about it that feels like,
well, it's interesting. I mean, I'm trying to look at this as much as I'm now a part of it. You know, I'm
yes,
also observing it as I would from
yes,
the outside, and there are parts of it in which the composing is the original social distancing um, profession, and so the awards economy is the exact opposite. It only exists as a social construct, really. I mean, they did it during the pandemic, but all those people, the things I just meant, the caterers and the
right.
people and the drivers and all of that,
They all stayed home.
suddenly they were all left out. It wasn't really the economy the way, but the
Yes,
economy is a social thing. And so it is by definition a distraction from what I do. And for writers, also, and people who work in a way that we might call introversion, it's the exact opposite of what they do. And yet, the more you do the thing that you love or feel is your calling, and you do that, the more opportunity you have to do this thing that's the opposite, to go and engage people. And, the way you get opportunities to engage your art is by interfacing with people and engaging with people and
yes,
reaching audiences, and,
yes. Well,
and so anyway.
you use the word opportunity there, but
Mhm.
uh, is it? It's certainly an opportunity, but is it an opportunity, or is there an expectation that you will take this opportunity?
Well, it's no different than any other social. People are social animals, and anytime you receive an invitation from someone,
Yes,
you sometimes you're unavailable, and that's just too bad. But that by the same token, there's only so many times that those people will invite you. If
right,
you're always unavailable, they must conclude that you're
right,
just unavailable, period.
right, right.
And that's no different if it's an award or if it's I mean, the stakes are different, or the people know you less. But
Yeah.
you won't be invited to your very best friend's house if you never
Say,
accept.
and
So
congratulations publicly on your winning of yours and Rhiannon's the Pulitzer for music this year, which is
Thank you.
okay. Here's so last time we were speaking, you had already created the opera, but because the opening was a little bit off in the distance, you had these opportunities to go back to it and change this, and et cetera, et cetera. And and then it was birthed. Did you have any expectation, not for the Pulitzer, but did you have any expectation that it would be so um, broadly and enthusiastically welcomed into that world?
I mean, we had some feeling that there was a lot of support for us because so many companies came on as co-commissioners in the period. There's a, because opera has this long lead time, there were workshops in which we would demonstrate with just a couple singers and a couple instruments different parts of the work.
Mm-hmm.
And then they would and at these workshops they invite interested potential stakeholders, people who might want to come on board at an early stage,
Yeah.
help the work be seen, and that's very normal. And so the Spoleto USA Festival was able to get 4 or 5 different co-commissioners to come on board. And I mean, I don't have a lot of experience in knowing how that works, but that seemed like a high number to me.
I was going to say,
wow,
it seems like
that seems good.
Like a lot.
Yeah. So we certainly felt like on the presenter side that there was a lot of support
Yeah.
for a lot of people who believed in the work, but you can't possibly, I would always, one thing I do is you write a larger piece, and then at least what I do is I wait, and then one morning I just get up and then I just play it on my computer in the computerized version. And I just sit there and I try to act like I'm an audience member. I try to experience it and not have it be a part of me or my experience, and just ask myself, am I entertained?
Mm-hmm.
Or, am I moved?
Mm-hmm.
Does this piece work? And I had always had a sense about, especially as we refined it, like we got to where I felt like every part of it, I could say, this works. This does exactly what it needs to do. But there's nothing like feeling that and then feeling that in an audience full of people. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
but because you've spent so many years hoping that that might be the possibility, when it proves true, it's beyond
Mm.
it's beyond words to explain what that's like.
Well, it's from this side, watching it happen out there, it's just so splendid, and I'm so happy. And then and in certain ways, it seemed like the Pulitzer was icing on the cake, and well, of course it would. What are you talking about?
Well,
So you've been, since last time we spoke, you've been stocking up on awards. And it was that question that, that is there, how does one fit all that into a life and still allow the muse to come visit?
Well, you have to struggle to balance those things, and it's challenging.
I'll bet.
It
It's challenging.
And there are periods of time, sometimes weeks of time, which are given up to, you know, the the extrovert side of what that is, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
responding to the world, whose attention you have struggled to get. And then you've got it and you discover that
No, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that's not what I want.
no.
Do that over there.
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, you have
Yeah.
that, then you have that as your next level of oh, now how do I manage this, but a it's a blessing to have a problem like that. So
Yes.
but you find that, internally the spiritual nurturement comes from comes from having that connection with the creative, with the creative divine energy, and then
Mm,
that
mm,
it's
yeah.
kind of a spiritual practice in that way. So
I also was wondering about, excuse me. I don't remember who it was years ago reading. It was some, I think it was a rock musician, or he was talking about, you work for years creating, you're writing your songs and you're putting it out there, and you're try it with this band, this version of the band, that version of the band, whatever. And then, you're suddenly, after 15 years, 10 years, an overnight success, right? All of
yes,
a sudden
overnight.
and overnight, just overnight. And and your album is a huge hit, and now everybody wants the next one. And it took 10 or 15 years
Yes.
to put that one together, and people want the next one. When is the next one happening? And I'm wondering if there is a parallel in your work, where
Yeah.
now that you've
Yeah.
exploded into the
Mm.
scene, and it has been, it's been a rocket taking off. And is there now this, like, okay, well, what's next? What's next? Is there a parallel to that?
It, well, the great part about it is that it doesn't. I understand that it's a rocket, but it doesn't feel like a rocket. Like it feels like years of steady progression,
Yes.
which is much calmer than a rocket, even though it looks like a rocket externally. And
Well,
in those in
yes.
those if I had gone from where it was 5, 7 years ago to today, that would be a rocket. But there have been those years in there, and in those years, oh my gosh, that's been the scaffolding that has
Mhm.
on which I'm relying at this moment. So that part's important.
And have you, I don't know how else to ask this question. Have you uh have you reached the point in your career, in this aspect of what you do, um to say no to
Oh yeah,
things?
I
Yes.
I have to.
Look, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, um, occasionally it's a project that's not right for me,
Right.
but
But when it
it,
is, but when
what?
it is, when the project is right, there's just, like, people could be throwing gold at you, and you want, because it's gold, ambrosia, it's the best, it's manna from heaven, it's the thing, and it's rich and fabulous. And last time we spoke, you had just finished, sort of, the opera, and you had written something for Hillary Hahn, and I don't know if did that ever get recorded? And
Oh,
yeah,
yes, and
yeah,
she was nominated for a Grammy for her recording of
of that.
it. Yes.
Yeah, see, there's another. Well, so are those being peppered at you so quickly that at some point you have to say no to those? Or have you been lucky enough to just turn down projects that are not right for you?
Um, sometimes I have to turn down something that is right for me that I would love to do, but I just don't have the time to do, and
Yeah,
that's bad. Um,
yeah.
but um,
I guess that's the good
yeah,
problem to have, right?
yeah, it's a good problem to have. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
But you want, of course, to. I get offered mostly what I get offered is really interesting stuff that um, is usually has some aspect of social justice, but maybe not in an obvious way, which is, even though there'll be things that are like nothing like Get Out, they would share that in common with the movie Get Out, that there would be something it works as entertainment, but then also there's another dynamic that allows conversation and
Right.
which is things that I love. Like that's something you and I share. So
Yes. Yes.
and then a lot of it involves social justice in some way, and that's really interesting. And then and any of these people who I would talk to are really just incredible artists in their own right who have all sorts of things going on, and um, you know, lists of awards that I'm intimidated by, and it's pretty cool. So
Very few of them have, I'm just guessing, very few of them have an awards page that is this
well,
long. I just looked. No, no, really. I just looked.
okay,
I
well,
didn't
there's
count, but I looked at Danny Elfman's page. I looked at John Williams' page. Now that is
their pages
remarkable.
are, they're not pages, they're entire novels.
Yes, but
Entire novels, those the two of them. Mine is in no way as long as
no,
theirs.
no, that's true. That is true. But that's where we are.
Oh my
Those are
goodness.
the comparisons. So
Well, thank you.
so yeah. Um,
And what else? And I am um getting a this next time, if we talk again, I will probably be in a new studio space that I'm
ah,
doing, and that's very exciting.
a new studio space at your home or a new studio space elsewhere?
Elsewhere, yeah,
Ah,
because it's been time to have a it's interest. It's like gameplay in that um you play at a level until you've completed that level, and then you level up and you suddenly are like, oh well, I have some of the skills that I need, but oh, what's this? Oh, I'm dead. Yeah. But I just leveled up. What do you mean I'm dead? So so it's really kind of like that. And the problem is you know, you can often talk to someone who's on, not often, but like you look at someone who's on level 34 and you think, oh, that must be great, and you're on level 10, and what you need is coaching on level 11, not level 34.
yes, right.
And it's really hard to assess the number of your level and who's on the level like maybe one or two above you, and then be able to get coaching from them on,
Mm.
oh yeah, I was just at level 10 and I remember this, you know, don't go in that door, wait. But so
Okay,
anyway, there's
so
not coaching like that, so you have to like die a few times on your level. And so I'm currently like about to move into my new studio, which is amazing, and I can't wait, but I'm also sure that it'll cost me a couple lives before I get to that
and
level.
and what? Okay, so making it less abstract. What are the things that will be available and or present, or the
Oh well, the
capacities at a new studio that are not there?
Oh well, there's a capacity to have a, and so I work at home and I work in this, which is rather dark right now, but actually a beautiful, peaceful room with my piano,
Yeah.
and it's a little small for bringing a director or showrunner, which I've done, you know, many times, but personally, I still feel like it's a little smaller than I would like.
Mhm.
And my the people who assist me, we mostly work remotely, which we set up prior to the pandemic. And then when the pandemic happened, we were suddenly like, great, this is what we always do. We were
Mhm.
relatively unaffected compared to a lot of people because we were working remotely. But there are things that you get from working in the same
Yes.
building environment.
Right.
And so the new space sets up, you know,
Mhm.
one or more of us working in the same place, and having that be an option, and having clients over and having them feel like they're in a
Sure.
space that is like, here's a workspace, here's the hangout space. You know, it's a
And
give.
is there like technological uh aspects to the studio that you now will that you will soon
Yes,
operate in?
just because when you start from scratch, you can go, okay, now that if I'm starting, I want to do
Yeah.
it this way, you know. So
Mhm.
there's upgrades and things like that. And I think
Yeah.
I'm getting, so I've had this piano since I was 20, and I'm getting a new
So
piano.
3 years.
Yes, so it's been a really great 3 years, but I think I'll be saying goodbye and getting a new piano. And
Oh wow.
in fact, I am. I've picked it out. I'm just waiting for the place to be ready to get delivery of a nice piano.
Ah, fabulous.
And
That's
yeah,
great.
so
Yeah.
so these are all really great milestones that
I have some fun questions for you that people have said, "Oh, you're going to speak to Michael Abels again?" Yes, and it's like, well, what's his go-to music?
Oh,
So, does he even like horror movies? So,
I,
what is your go-to? Do you have a go-to style? Like, if you put something on to,
I'm mostly like so I live in a music factory, so by choice, and which I've worked hard to create. So when I go home from work, that's not necessarily what I want to do.
yes, you live you live in a Zen monastery at home, with
I mean, when I explain it that way, people are like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense."
yeah,
Uh, and when I'm just really wanting to chill out, I quite honestly listen to chill out music.
yes,
And
yeah,
it's
got it,
because it creates an emotion in me, not because I follow a particular artist.
right. And do you like horror films?
I, sometimes, but sometimes, but
Other
I'm
than the
not
ones that, other than
right.
those,
But I'm completely not a fan in the way that Jordan Peele is. He has
he
seen
is a
every
horror
horror
film
and
fan.
suspense
Oh,
film,
I see.
and he's a student of every single one of them.
Uh,
And he knows all the ones that work, he knows why they work. And he can give you a scene by scene analysis of everything about that makes them work. And it's stunning. You know,
yeah,
encyclopedic knowledge, but also just devoted his devotion to knowing, like, the thing that he and I have in common is like the thing he has um about film, and particularly horror and suspense. I feel that way about genres of music. The minute I hear something that intrigues me, I have to mentally, I'm taking it apart and going like, how does this work and why is
mhm,
this, what is interesting about this, what makes me feel this way. I'm just dissecting it, like the way a mechanical people will take things apart and put them back together again just to understand how it works. And that's how I listen to music. And so when you listen to music that way, it can be distracting.
mhm,
And so
mhm,
sometimes I'm deliberately not listening to music
yeah.
to
Oh, I
that part of my
totally get
brain
that.
rest. So
So, you know, one of the things, well, it's been my naive experience of you over the years, um, but I've now heard it repeated so often in various articles, et cetera, et cetera. Uh, you have a range of, we certainly have a range of understanding about music and music genre and arts genre generally, but certainly music, um, that always to me felt enormous. But I don't count as a measuring stick. My ruler goes up to
yeah.
a foot at the most.
Okay.
But people who are steeped in music speak about the uh, how adept you are um, at understanding and producing and composing uh, for a variety of musical genres. And I'm wondering if if that's opened up doors, like the things come in your door that, or wherever they come, your email, your inbox, or your telephone, that uh, where you are offered something, or at least uh, asked about whether you have an interest in something in an area that you feel like, that's, I'm really interested in that, but I don't know very much about that, or I don't have that
Musical muscle,
that
maybe.
facility with with the other ranges. So first of all, is it true? Do you is it true that your range of those kinds of things, and don't be modest here. I mean, don't be more modest than you need to be. Um, but is it the case that your breadth of of musical, I don't know if it's expertise or familiarity, is larger than many people, many musicians, many composers, and are there genres that that feel like they're just over there, not level 34 perhaps, but level 12, level 13. So they might require skipping a level or two, but that's really interesting. But is there that? Does that happen?
I hear several questions there.
Well, you're a smart
I
guy. You're going to figure them all out.
so I like one of the things that fascinates me about music is that all the differences that we perceive in genres of music. That's been a thing that I've been excited about since I was a child, really.
Yes.
So, um, so if I'm more versed in a variety of genres than others, it's because that's one of the primary things that interests me.
Mhm.
I want to be facile in different genres because I enjoy it so much. I get I think the way people approach you about on projects is usually based on they've heard something you've done
Something.
and they can therefore imagine you doing something, and it's what they can imagine based on what you've done is never the complete opposite. It's always something that's similar.
Yeah.
So even if even people who think of me as being pretty genre diverse, um it's because they've heard something and that think makes them think of me for this other thing. So there's some relationship you can usually, even if they weren't to say what it was, that you could say, oh, because of it was because of this. But I think everybody also wants their project, no matter the medium, to have a specific sonic identity, and visual identity and story. They want something that is unique in some way. And so having some versatility in genre allows me to um, have more colors in my palette, have more that I can pitch to them and say, well,
Mhm.
what if we did it this way, and not feel like, oh, I can't, I'm going to be going out of my
Yeah. Out of my
field,
lane. Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to be out of my lane. I don't feel that often. I think, oh, well, we could try it this way and see. And so I think that's where I have the most opportunity to the most opportunity to stretch is by saying,
Yeah.
by offering up that we could do something that people may not expect.
And do you find yourself yearning for, is there an out there that you would like to be at that nobody's come knocking for?
Well, let's see. So I haven't done so when the uh, pas de deux from Us, which is the piece that spins I Got Five on it. When people really responded to that, I thought, I should do, I want to do more kind of horror takes on music. People have no idea how many of those there could be. And I just can't. Um, it's one of those things where I'm sure if I build it, they will come. It's like, oh, I'm clear what a great idea this is, and this needs to happen, but I haven't found anyone else who says, oh my goodness, yes, we're going to
Yes. We're
do
going to
that.
put that in. Yes.
People just smile and nod and say, yes, that'll be great, but then they just wait for me to do it. Because there's no
Mm,
doesn't put them to do nothing. What about this? So but meanwhile, I've been doing other things, and so that hasn't happened yet, but we'll see. I still think that
yeah.
would to be a
Well, I do
just
want to,
be a producer in that sense, like a music producer.
yes.
And in the somehow the difference between composer and producer are very unclear to me, but to people who identify as producers, a lot of times they do not identify as composers at all. But I feel like they're close, but I've never done a project where I'm really just like I'm a producer in the hit, hit record sort of sense. I
Uh,
haven't lately anyway.
so, inform me. So
Oh, just
what would a producer in that sense do that you're not doing?
well, um, this could be a long conversation. I think part of it is a label based on musical culture. Is that the word producer is more associated in, in songs, and
Uh,
the person who produces a song could be the composer of the song, could be,
right. But
or
it's often not.
but it's often not. Yeah.
Right.
And and let's say, just for distinction's sake, let's say that it's, if you're producing a song that you haven't written yourself, you may be providing an arrangement of the song. You may be changing everything about the instruments of the song. You might be changing the chords. You might be changing the beat. Almost everything recognizable about the song, except perhaps the melody and the lyrics.
Hmm.
You then might be coaching the singer in their delivery of the song.
Hmm.
And that's especially important in producing a song. Is um, Singing is, so some of it is musicianship, but so much of it is acting and many other things. And delivering a song, having a producer in the booth to give the singer feedback as they're doing what they're doing, is it
It
really
changes
helps.
everything. Sure.
Yeah, it really helps recreate the
Yeah.
experience of hearing someone live, as opposed to them in a dark studio all by themselves. And then you could, with an inexperienced singer, get a very unengaging performance, which just has to do with the singer's, environment of the moment, not about what's. And so having people to actually perform for makes a huge difference
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of musicians, but especially singers. And
Mm-hmm.
so a producer also, um, there's a lot of um, technical expertise that goes into producing music, a song that involves kind of sonic enhancement, sonic ear candy that is
Yeah.
provided by the wonderful technologies that we have, and learning how to mix a song in a way that
Mhm.
makes it actually shake the speakers of your car when that's important, or making it feel like you're in a wash of beautiful sonic pillows when that's important. And
Mhm.
all the sonic placement of things is often done by a producer. So it's really a enhanced 3D composing experience.
I totally can see you doing that.
Oh
I
well.
can from this naive point of view, right? But I mean, having, I know we spoke about this last time, but you know, having watched you assemble that particular show, that first show in the theater, was, you saw something and heard something long before it actually happened on stage. So so
And I look back and I'm still amazed that that happened. It
I'm
actually
kidding.
mostly happened the way that we planned it. Most.
Well, that's actually one of the things I was wondering about Omar, the opera that you and Rhiannon created. So you collaborated, you worked together, this remarkable piece, and then you pour people into it.
Hmm.
And there are singers and there's sets and were you surprised by things that, with the net result of that? Because I mean, you you and she created the music and what was the line? Libretto, right? So
Libretto is the
the
fancy
story,
word for
right?
the lyrics. Yeah.
Right, the lyrics, the story, the the music, and now it's being staged, and all of those other things that come with when a production gets put on. And was it what you expected? Did you see? Is that what you saw? Is that what you saw when you were dreaming all
Well,
this?
in a very dull way, I can say yes, only because there are moments in a staged drama that you need to there when there's a moment of action, when the plot is moving, you need to understand, you need, at least for me, to write that music, I need to be able to see it. And of course that's not possible. So I imagine it.
Yes.
I imagine it, and I imagine it not just as a stationary picture, but I imagine it in time. I sit and I meditate, and I imagine that whole thing playing out as if I'm an audience member of this stage thing in my mind. And then I hit a timer when I'm done. And then I do it again, and I hit it, then I hit the time, and I do it again until the way I envision it takes a certain amount of time, until that it aligns. Every time I imagine this unfolding in all of its grandness, or all of its or in all of its feeling, it takes a certain amount of time. And then I know that's how much music to write.
Oh my gosh.
Because I know that I've created the scene, and I know how long. And music doesn't take place in a frame, it takes place in time. Time is the frame of musical art. So I need a frame. And so I create the frame by visualizing it and timing. And when I have the frame, then I write the music.
You
Because
literally sit there with a timer? I mean, there's actually a timer.
and I imagine, okay, this is the scene. And in Omar, it was particularly important. Well, there's like the first act is very narrative. And there's scenes where it's filled with things where stuff happens. And because we're in the 21st century, we've all seen movies, we need it to happen in a cinematic way. We need it to happen not in the glacial pace of the 1700s or 1800s. So I imagine the movie scene, but I imagine it on the stage. I don't imagine it, because we don't. For example, in Omar, there's a horrible moment where the Senegalese village is overrun with slavers, and that's horrible and terrible. And then in the next scene, we're in the belly of the slave ship, and I had to write that transition, and I felt like it was the most crucial transition in the opera.
Hmm.
Because it's foreshadowed, but then it happens, and you definitely don't know that you're going to the belly of a slave ship in 45 seconds. But I had to visualize what's that going to be like. So it's not just a cut like in the film. There's set pieces that are going to have to roll in and out, and things are going to have to go up and down, and a character dies, and we want to mourn that. And so I would sit there and I would visualize how that might happen on stage, till I figured out about how long felt right for such a significant event to happen. And then that's how much music I wrote. And I wrote it last. So the scene before and the scene after were already done. And Rhiannon and I, we had gotten those scenes, so they were both great and working from those points. But then there was this hairy transition. And so I visualized how the stage might look and timed it, and then I wrote the music. But then, so that's the way in which the answer to your question is yes, it happens.
Yes.
Because the music, it's timing, right? And so there's a way when you're writing opera that you're the director, because everything goes to the music. So if as a composer, we say it's a 45-second transition, then it will be, because that's how long the music is. Now, but then there's the way in which it's not how we envisioned it. And the answer is it's much greater than we ever could have envisioned it, because you get an experienced stage director, and they take whatever you've done, and then they add their vision, and they're the ones who are actually talented in envisioning it. And the result is just, I get choked up thinking about just how freaking magnificent our looks staged, because Kneza Schall is a genius, and her production designer, Christopher Myers, is another genius. And together, they just created the world of Omar's story is really, it's it's bleak. He's enslaved.
Yes.
But the way they tell it, the purpose of the story is it's about the power of faith to transcend even the most egregious suffering. And they understood that, and they brought out, just as in the music, the beauty of that possibility is revealed through the music. They reveal it through their set design and through their production design. And the collaboration there between the music and in that, you can tell I'm overcome whenever I talk about it.
Wow.
And then there are things you can do in there are things you can do in opera where you are allowed to just, you could tell how important it was for me to get the pacing right of narrative parts. But then the opposite is there are moments where you can just stop and you can meditate on a moment and feel its, beauty or significance. And then in those moments, it's okay that a character has died, but now she's a ghost and she's back. And we in opera we accept that because it's about there's an element of it that's performance art. And then at the end of Omar, whereas the first act takes place in very specific places, the end of Omar takes place kind of in a non-specific location
No place. Yes, right.
because it's a meditation on faith and the human condition, and it doesn't need to be in a particular setting. And so the way that and the libretto, when we showed the libretto to people just reading it, they were just like, well, where's this scene? Like, what's the location? It struck some people as odd, but it didn't even occur to me and Rhiannon that it seemed like the natural ending. Like to us, it was like, oh, I guess it doesn't happen when we didn't even think about it. Like it didn't even, but then of course the stage director, she completely got that. And the way it's staged, it opens up into this beat that looks like you would see like pictures you see of like the African Serengeti, and there'll be a single tree with it, right? And it's that sort of tree. It's one enormous tree in a otherwise, relatively empty stage, and the tree takes up the entire stage, and it is rope and all we've seen during the whole opera is rope and fabric being used in other ways. And at the end, this enormous tree happens, and it's gorgeous.
That was vivid. Thank you. Well, Michael, I'm looking at my clock, and I know your clock has this bounded by 4. So I want to make sure to get you off in 4 minutes. But so I have an odd question that almost feels, well, it'll snap us out of that trance we were. You've managed to put us in with even the description of Omar. So all this talk brouhaha about AI, and it's both its power, and depending upon who you talk to, I spoke to on the podcast a computer scientist who made me feel better about it all. But then recently human extinction conversation, etc. But
What's a little human extinction?
where's the human extinction when you need it? But can you imagine? Have you? Are there things about AI and the art world, the music world, that periodically cause you to wake up in the middle of the night?
Well, currently we're in the middle of the WGA writer's strike, which at the point of us recording has been going on for a month.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And they are speaking for all of us creatives in that they want protections against how AI is used. And because it's this technology, we don't know what the end result of it is. And it's terrifying in not knowing. Composers have the same issues about AI that writers do. Absolutely. And that's one side of it. The other side of it is that the history of music is that whenever there has been a technological advance, it has made people very afraid. And people have responded by saying, shut it down.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking back to the invention of the phonograph record. People thought, do you mean people are just going to listen to music that's recorded on, this thing? Well, they'll never listen to live music again. We can't let that happen. We have to shut it down. Well, and what happened was that provided a whole new experience, which made people
Sure.
love music more. And, you know, and then, jump ahead a few steps, multi-track recording where you could record and then record another thing and then they'd play back together and people would go, are you kidding? No one's going to hire musicians ever again. They're just going to hire one person to play 89 different things and will never work. And, you can't allow that. Well, and the way we recorded changed and some things changed, but then it also opened some creative possibilities. And it's true, not everybody got called to be hired who used to be called, but then other people got called to do different things.
Mm-hmm.
So the technology evolves. So if you're an optimist, you want to say, okay, AI is going to evolve everything we do. And it's going to cause some people to not be hired where they might have been. But it's going to open up other possibilities that we don't quite know yet for humans to participate and interact. And so the way we work will continue to evolve. And that will be not good news for some jobs and some economies. And new economies and jobs will be created. And yet, AI seems especially more scary than the phonograph record or multi-track recording or sampling or any of these other technologies.
Yes.
And I think that we're wise to be worried. Now, as it happened, I was asked to write a piece in collaborating with an AI about 2 years ago. And an AI company asked me and several other composers to collaborate with their AI and to write a piece. And I wrote this piece, and it's called "Gift of the Machine." And there's a recording of it. And how I wrote it was that one of the options. So this particular AI, you could tell it, well, I want music in this style, in this genre, and I want it to be this long, 90 seconds, like 3 minutes, whatever. And I want it to have these instruments. And then you hit, you know, make or send.
And the circle goes around for a few minutes, and
right, and the circle goes around for about 15 seconds, and then you have this piece that's exactly to your. And so the ability to generate content is just instantaneous. And then you listen to that content, and at least at the time that I did that, there were many things lacking from what it would have been if it had been produced by a professional composer. And as a professional composer, that was a relief to see. I felt like I was still ahead of it, although I wasn't in terms of speed of content generation.
Right.
But of the content it generated, there would occasionally be something that, to my ear, was an interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
But the machine did not know that that was an interesting idea as opposed to the thing it had just done.
Right.
So therefore, the interesting idea was not exploited,
right,
developed in a way that a human, when they have an interesting idea, knows this is an interesting idea, and I'm going to make this into something.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a pebble skipping across a lake, and like the interesting place was given no more attention than the place that was not interesting, just on to the next.
Yeah.
So what I did was I curated the machine's ideas. I curated the content, and I went, oh, I like this and I like that. And these things go together in the way that everything else does not. And I like this idea, and I know how this idea could relate to that idea in a way that this music does not demonstrate any understanding of.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that. And so I curated the machine's ideas into a piece. And I provided the AI company with an analysis of what it was doing well. Oh, and I fed music that I wrote into the machine, which I thought, I'm really canceling myself here by doing this. But I wanted to see what it thought of that. And when I said, create content like this. And I wanted to see what it thought of that. And it was interesting, the things that it thought were significant about that music. And it would write piano music, and its piano music would in some cases take 5 hands to perform because the machine does not have opposable thumbs or understand how people learn to play the piano. So its piano music had a piano sound, but it was not pianistic. And so these were things that I had to solve. Um, and I did, and I showed the AI company how I did that and how the piece was generated, and they were excited that I could explain it in a way that was so
I'll bet.
clear,
Yes.
and it wasn't, and the piece I wrote was not a piece I ever would have written if I had not been inspired by the AI's content, and so
Yeah.
therefore it was a true collaboration um,
Yes.
with this code, and
Mhm.
that was a couple years ago. So I have no idea how smart their AI has become, but I trust it is much better than it was.
Well, as far as I know, it is, well, not specifically the music piece, but it is much smarter. But what you've described has very close parallels with what the computer, uh, the software engineer, the researcher, in that world, and spoke about. I mean, what the computers do, and now they could get better at this, and they could go beyond this, which is, I think, what scares people. But essentially they have one task, and that is to predict the next word, right? And the data they have are all the things that are, on the internet. That's the miracle of the internet, right? I mean, there's all this stuff that human beings have produced, and so they have all this stuff. This is an example of what human beings can produce. So, and the mistakes they make is they don't have that discerning quality that you just pointed at. They can predict next. They can predict next, and they can do it really efficiently. But
Curation is not prediction.
no, exactly.
Curation is not prediction. Curation is sometimes the unpredictable,
Yes.
and yet the unpredictable in a way that continues a theme. And
Yeah.
I,
Yes. The way you parsed it, if you're an optimist,
you're right.
right? And if you're not, you're getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning. And if you are, you're sleeping through the night before you level up. That may be a way to quickly level up to level 34, whatever the hell is going on there. But well, Michael, I'm honoring Mary Grace may be mad at me for taking you
It's my
over.
own fault. It's
Yeah.
my own fault. I saw the time and I went over, so it's okay.
Well, Michael, always just so good to speak with you, and thank you. And who knows, maybe we'll do this again. And by,
Maybe. I
and by
hope so.
then, your page will be, I won't have a computer screen large enough.
Ah.
Hey, lovely to see you, really is, and congratulations again on the
Thank you, David,
Pulitzer,
so much.
and everything else you've won, the ASCAP thing, and oh God. Anyway, I hope you're well. I hope you're staying healthy. Are you doing things to remain healthy?
I'm trying. I'm trying.
Okay.
You look very well, and so I will be following your regimen, whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever it is. Okay.